Shabbat Shalom, and special greetings to those who have newly joined our weekly conversation among ancient texts and medieval commentators and us. Welcome to our electronic neighborhood. And please post your comments and questions so that others might learn from and with you. The Sedra is Mishpatim. Exodus chapter 21, verse 1 and following. A shofet is a judge. Shoftim, judges. Mishpat, same root, is usually translated, therefore, as a judgment, a mishpat. But following the Revised Jewish Publication Society's Torah translation, which, by the way, is utilized in the Reform Movement's Plaut Torah commentary, I am comfortable with translating the word mishpatim as rules. The Sedra begins, Elah HaMishpatim. These are the rules that God gave to Moses to set before the Israelites at Mount Sinai, following the giving, of course, of Aseret HaDibrot, the Ten Commandments. A sidebar note. I was teaching an adult ed class this past week, and one of the participants stated that she felt that the conservative movement's Torah commentary, known as Eitz Chaim, was superior to that of the Plaut that I'm used to using. Atypically, my response to her was somewhat of a wobble. I knew Gunther Plaut. We even played tennis together, and this is not the place for me to say who was the first tennis player in the Bible. Joseph, you served in Pharaoh's court. I won't do that. But I found the Plaut Torah commentary to be scholarly, broadly focused, and yet fully embracing of a liberal movement's understanding of the origins and the nature of the commanding force of Scripture. I feel comfortable with that. By combining, as I do, the Plaut Torah commentary with the magnificent women's Torah commentary produced by the women of Reform Judaism, I have my personal foundational text for dealing with the Torah. Eitz Chaim itself is a wonderfully scholarly text, fully embracing the perspectives of the conservative movement. Which is better? That's actually not my question. My suggestion is that each of us should choose the commentary or commentaries that most often seem to be appealing to them. That's a bit of a wobble, I admit it, but I proudly stand by that wobble. To the work. Mishpatim, rules. Of the 613 mitzvot, commandments that we find in the Torah, those who specialize in counting, and there are those people, tell us that our Sedra actually contains 53 rules, 53 mitzvot, 20 positive commandments, 33 negative commandments. Which is the Sedra that has the most mitzvot? You got it right. Ki Teitzei in Deuteronomy, all-time champion, 74 mitzvot. But Mishpatim is no laggard. It's among the richest loads of Torah teachings. Okay, so with so many possibilities, how do we possibly choose what we're going to focus upon on a given Shabbat morning? I've always been drawn to one mitzvah that states, and it's in our text, that when a poor person comes to you and seeks a loan and leaves as a pledge for that loan an article of clothing that that person nightly uses as a blanket, you are required to return that garment to the poor person every day so that she might use it as a night blanket. The poor person must not be crippled because of their poverty. Okay, that's a favorite of mine. Others might instead find it fascinating in our Sedra to explore the depths of an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, or don't follow the majority in perpetrating evil acts. Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sacks has his own favorite. His preference. It's a little bit off to the side. Here's the quote. When you see the ass of your enemy lying under its burden, and you would refrain from raising it, you must nevertheless help to raise it. Isn't that a strange choice to make among these 53? Frankly, there are much bigger issues in our text, like don't lie during a court proceeding, or don't curse God in public, or what's the proper compensation for a theft, or what's the fair penalty for manslaughter. These are issues. But Sachs wants to look at an overburdened beast of burden. So we're going to do that. You come upon an animal that is so overloaded that it cannot stand. Normally, you might be inclined to help out, but wait. That animal belongs to someone who is your enemy. Natural inclination, walk away. But the mitzvah is that you must not walk away. You are obligated to help unload that ass. So while we're unloading the ass, let's unpack what's going on here. Now, there's a rabbinic category of ethical behavior that is known as tsa'ar ba'alei chayim. We are to avoid causing unnecessary pain to animals. We are to avoid acts of cruelty to animals. That's why, for example, Torah laws, you don't yoke together two animals of differing strength to work in your field. That's why you don't muzzle an animal that is working to help harvest grain. That's why you have to chase the mother bird away if you're going to take eggs for your consumption from her nest. That's why if you insist on slaughtering animals for food, that slaughtering must be done as painlessly as possible. For example, you cannot use a knife with a raggedy edge for the slaughtering because that edge will tear rather than cut swiftly. You must feed your animals even on the Shabbat, and your animals, by the way, should eat before you do. All of that, tsa'ar ba'alei chayim. So that's part of what Rabbi Sachs was involved with. It's a good teaching, but there's something else. Who's there in the Torah? The ass belongs to your enemy. Your enemy is standing before you next to their overburdened animal. They probably know what you think of them, and you definitely know what you think of them. Your natural inclination would be to go on your way, to exit the scene. But no, to turn your back on that animal who belongs to that person is expressly forbidden. It is a sacred imperative to unload that beast. The rabbis will go even deeper. At the very same time that you see that your enemy's ass needs help, you see your friend's ass needing help. You're supposed to help your enemy's ass first. Counterintuitive? Yeah, probably. But clearly something is going on here that is much bigger than preventing pain to an animal. These 53 mitzvot, the rules, ought properly to be seen as part of an effort to build a just society. Tzedek, to seek tzedek, to seek righteousness, justice in human society. It's so easy to hate another person, and frankly, it's easier to strongly dislike another person. But we are forbidden to allow such feelings, no matter how justified we might feel them to be, to block us from doing what is right. Before we see that person standing before us as enemy, we should be capable of seeing them first as a human being in the image of God. Shared humanity. And that just isn't easy. But for those who want to see justice triumph in our communities, that's how we must struggle to be. The pursuit of justice has absolutely nothing to do with plucking low-hanging fruit. The pursuit of justice is very hard work. It sometimes requires us to vote against our own personal benefit in elections. It sometimes means swallowing our pride. It sometimes means putting a hold on what might be a fully justified dislike of another. A note: the Torah is real. It doesn't seek to create a world of saints or to set impossible standards. The mitzvah, the rule in our Sedra, actually reads, Azov ta'azov imo. You must help unload that ass with him, with your enemy. If your enemy is indifferent to their animal, you are permitted to be indifferent. But if your enemy is in need, we're required to respond to that need. Build a just society. Seek for ways to break down barriers that blind us to the humanity of others. Wow. Do what's right simply because it's right. Because in so doing, maybe, just maybe, you can diminish a bit of the darkness in our world. In Sax's own words, sometimes, quote, small gestures of mutual assistance can, in the long run, transform the human situation, close quote. This is the realism that just might diminish the raggedy edges of human relationships. Well, that's it. Have a wonderful Shabbat, my friends, and keep an eye out for that overburdened donkey. Shabbat Shalom. Until next week.